Hey everyone, welcome to the Go Girl Leadership Project next interview, another video interview, which I see the light behind me. It's making me look angelic. I am so glad to have you guys here with us and to be talking to Nicki Anderson. Yay! Yeah. Yeah. So Nicki, I'm just gonna get right started on it. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what exciting thing you're doing right
Oh my gosh. A little bit about myself. Well, I am a chronically curious person.
now. Ooh, I love that phrase.
I love learning. I love learning, whether it's meeting new people and hearing their stories. I love that. I was a business owner for 25 years, and it was a health and wellness business. And I did consulting, I did writing, I did training. And after I sold it in 2012, I was ready to move into something new and different. And I was curious about what's next, right? And then in 2014, I was asked to come in and help. I hate to say the word save, but for lack of a better word, save the Chamber of Commerce because they had been through 6 CEOs in 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so let a woman do the job. I was the first woman in their 112-year history. And I came in and with a great team. I did not do it myself. I got great people, and we worked really hard to turn that chamber around. And I committed to 5 years. I am a big believer that after a certain amount of time, you get dangerously content or complacent.
Right.
And suddenly you're not thinking that excitement can fade. Now, some people, they can go 20 years and that excitement never dies.
Mm-hmm.
But I know me.
Yeah.
And I knew that as long as I could leave the chamber better than I found it, I would feel really good about my time there. So I left in 2000, well, just last year, October of last year. Seems like
So long ago.
1992. And so I knew it was time. I was really ready. And then I didn't know what was going to be next. And here I am at Benedictine University, and I am helping to develop a leadership program for undergraduate women.
Oh, I love
So awesome. So awesome.
That's like everything I dream of every day.
Right. So when you ask about what I'm most excited about, I learn something new every day. I'm like a 5-year-old in kindergarten. It's like, what? It's fantastic. Yesterday, I went to this lecture where a professor from St. Mary's was there talking about mission trips that he takes with his students to Northern Ireland. I'm like, Bloody Sunday, that U2 song,
Yeah.
right? The whole history behind that.
Wow.
I was like, I go home at the end of the day to my husband going, did you know? And did you know? And you know what else? So that's what I'm most excited about.
Oh my gosh. I love that though. And
It's pretty
well, you're chronically curious. What better place to land than at a university?
right? I know. It's pretty fantastic. It's pretty and wonderful people. The
Right.
people are incredible, and but it works a little differently than the world of business and for profits and things like that.
Right.
So,
Right. Which is something I kind of love. Like you talk about that excitement. I think
right,
sometimes we think even if we're going to change a job, we think we still have to stay within the mold we've been created in.
right.
And it's good at any time of life to jump into something completely different.
Well, and I think too, challenging the mind by doing that. I mean, certainly there are people who want to be consistent in what they do, especially if they went to college and their major is journalism, right? And that's just something they've always done. And I get that. That's just not my personality. And just the idea of kind of forcing myself to do something I might know something about it subconsciously, but not consciously. I never would have said, I'm gonna start a leadership program. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do, right? Someone sought me out and said, hey, I think you'd be good. And I'm like, right? An interesting study shows that when men and women are applying for a job, if a woman doesn't meet 90% of the criteria, she won't apply. Men, if they meet 30%, apply.
Right.
Right. So that, second guessing yourself thing. And I'm very fortunate because I don't sometimes to a fault. A little self-awareness helps
No, but
sometimes.
that's really good because then I've heard that too, specifically about women going into politics. Like
Hmm.
one of the reasons that there's not more women in politics is because somebody didn't ask them to run. Because
Yeah,
even though they're sitting at home and they're saying, gosh, I'd really like to do something about my neighborhood or my community, unless
right,
somebody
right,
specifically comes in and says, you should do this because
right,
they won't
right.
do it. But men are like, you know what? I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to run
I'm gonna do
for
it.
office. And
Yeah,
it's just a weird mindset that we have that we got to check all those boxes.
right, right. Oh, without question. And we tend to be, that perfection syndrome anyway. Um, and that's just, a fact.
But you don't have that. Look at you.
I I'm really too, like I said, sometimes to a fault. Like, I can do that.
Well, I also love that you don't have a plan. Like, when you left the chamber, you didn't know what was next,
Right.
and you were okay with not knowing. Like it was
Well, and
fun.
I want to be really clear about that. Like, I have the luxury not to have to
Correct.
worry,
Yeah.
right? So I know how fortunate I am that I didn't know, right? That I wasn't worried about it. Where some women, they're the sole, you know,
Absolutely.
money earners, and they have to know. I think for me, what I did know and what I have known pretty much my whole life is that I would never do anything that I didn't think in some way, shape, or form would make an impact.
Mm.
And so I've always been very conscious about the decisions that I made and knew, 2 years ago, I was sitting on the porch with my husband, crying, going, there's just something calling me and I don't know what it is, right? So I've had those moments too. And it's when I just go, relax, it's gonna happen. But again, I'm in a really fortunate position that I can say relax, right, and
Right.
not panic. So I
Right.
just want to make that clear that not everybody has that luxury.
No, but I think we all have the opportunity to make decisions from a place of not being panicked. Even if it's, I don't have the money, I can't leave this job to start my own company because I don't have the money to do it. But being able to think, but what can I do right now
Yes.
that leads me to where I want to be, and not make decisions, because anytime, well, at least anytime I've made a decision from a place of panic, it's never right.
Never ends well.
It never is good. So it's
Right.
always good to like get yourself to a place where you have, a little bit more flexibility, and you can relax a little.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, you bring up such a fantastic point, and that is, instead of saying we can't, it's what do we need to do?
Yes.
And okay, so I can't do it this way, right? But there are 20 ways. So if I'm very passionate about starting my business, I know I need that income. So I'm going to hustle on the side and do my job, do this,
Mhm.
start my business. Or if that doesn't work, my weekends, figuring that out. So it's not, I really struggle when people go, oh, I just can't do that. Well, why? Why
Right.
can't you? And there's a solution. So let's figure that out.
Yeah, that's such a great way to look at anything that's down the line. And never be afraid to do something just because you don't know it yet. Like you don't have all those
Right.
boxes. I mean,
Because that's how we learn,
yes,
right?
yes. And when you said that about, like being this, lifelong learner and, chronically curious, like that is what it almost takes. Like when I started my business, I was an accidental entrepreneur. I knew nothing.
Right.
But you figure it out, and you know
Yeah.
people, and there's all sorts of resources, and it's okay to not know, and I still don't know. There's still
Right.
things that happen. And there's
Right.
freedom in saying, you know what, I don't know, but I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah. Right. And to trust yourself enough to know that you can figure it out, right? It's so interesting. When I started my business, I was inspired by reading a magazine, and it was talking about personal training. And what I was really struggling with, this was back in the 80s, was that women were having just these awful um, low self-esteem. The messages out there were unrealistic, as they still are today, going
Right.
back to the perfection syndrome. And I said, women need to be empowered to think differently about their bodies and themselves. I could be an awesome trainer. I had no background, Patty, nothing. I didn't have a physiology degree, nothing.
Yeah.
So I just started researching and I found someone who is a trainer. She led me to an online program. And this is when it was like taking a class online just to answer a question took 15 minutes.
Oh, back in the day.
Right? You've got mail.
Right.
And so I look back on that and it was really interesting because I remember telling my husband and he's like, "Oh, what do you want to do that for?" And because it's a good idea. I mean, it just seemed like I thought I could be really good at it, right? Like, so what's the alternative? I do it and it doesn't work,
Right.
right? Okay, plan B. And so I think every time we take that risk or make a decision to be a little uncomfortable, fuels that confidence in us, which is why it is so important to take those risks and to be a
Mhm.
little uncomfortable and to know it's okay not to know, right? That the fear of, well, what if they ask me a question I don't know? You don't know,
Right. There's nothing for
right?
you to
And
do.
right? And so that I think is really when I, am formulating this leadership program, this is not about being the perfect leader. Leadership is about attitude, right?
Mhm.
And so what's your attitude? How are you approaching things? How are you embracing your ideas and how are you sharing them? And it's so much bigger than, well, I'm going to lead this project. It really is so much bigger than that.
Oh, yeah. That's exciting.
I know.
Like,
Can you tell I'm excited?
it is. Like, I just love even thinking of that, like, and kind of flipping that whole idea of leadership and what it means to be a leader,
Right,
and
right,
really diving into that, which it
right.
kind of leads me to another question for you, because you mentioned this a lot in the blog that you wrote for us about kindness. And
Mm,
I think so many times, I believe in the strength of kindness. Clearly, you believe in the strength of kindness. And I think it is one of the top leadership traits is to be able to look at the world from your heart a little bit. Um,
mm.
why do you think kindness still gets a bad rap in the world of leadership? And, like the world doesn't see it as a strength as it is.
To your point, they don't see it as a strength, they see it as a weakness,
Right.
right? I used to say to people when I was having a hard conversation, I'm nice, I'm not stupid.
Mm,
And so there's this element of, well, they're a softie, they're a pushover, you can be kind and have chutzpah, right?
right.
And so I think that there's this grave misunderstanding about what kindness means. And we all have to define it in our own way. And in mine, it's sort of like what you said is, just looking at the world with an open mind and an open heart and realizing that everybody out there has their story and their struggle, right? Man, woman, everybody. And so I think one of the reasons why I love being at this university and what I'm discovering is they have it's like the hallmarks of the Benedictine values. And it's so fascinating because it really just comes down to being a good human being.
Mm,
Did I say human being? Human being.
or being, whatever. It's a,
Human being. Um, and to me, that like it's so much easier to do that. You know how I love to do my quotes.
hmm.
And in times when it would be so easy to be unkind, those are the times that you really have to dig deep and open yourself up to kindness. And again, I don't want to confuse people that, when someone's treating you like crap, do you take it?
Right.
Depends what the situation is. You can stand up for yourself. Like I said, I'm nice, I'm not stupid,
Right.
right? And so at the end of the day, if you have to speak up for yourself, there's a gracious way to do that. You don't
Exactly.
have to call somebody, I don't know, can I swear on here?
Sure.
Okay. Like you don't have to call somebody an asshole,
Right.
right? I'm really struggling with this conversation, or I'm feeling very disrespected now. I think this conversation needs to end. That kind of a thing. And we are responsible for those kinds of conversations. And you
Right.
don't have to be mean. It goes back, I might get off on a tangent a little bit, that this idea that being a leader, that as a woman, you kind of have to be a bitch.
Yeah, that was exactly what was thinking in my head, that is that
Right?
you have to almost take on this personification that may not be you.
Right, right. Well, the thing is, what I hear people say is, well, if I could just be more like a man. The
Yeah,
reality is we're not for many reasons, and it's okay.
right.
And study after study, research after research shows that companies that are more diverse, gender-wise and otherwise, their bottom line is far superior to those who don't put women in
Mhm.
leadership positions. I mean, the research is out there. Go
Yeah,
find it.
yeah.
So I think that my job is not to diminish the other women that work for me or to try and be a dude. My job is to be, it goes back to that leadership, to be the best advocate I can for myself, because if I can do that for myself, I'm able to do that for other people.
Right.
And you don't have to be mean or strong or whatever other attribute that's male like that we think we have to do. And I understand that 30 years ago, that was the mentality of a lot of women, right? That I got to go in, I got to put up with the BS, I have to be dudish. But we've learned that that doesn't work.
We
That
also
doesn't
wore big
work.
shoulder pads, and we had the power suits too, like that too.
I
So
will tell you, because I have slumpy shoulders, I really miss those shoulder pads. I hope they come back.
you're bringing them back.
I'm bringing them back.
I can't wait till the next time I see you with your shoulder pads in. That's gonna be. I feel like it's a new thing. She's bringing it back. It's real.
Right, right. They brought sexy back.
That's right. You can bring shoulder pads back. You can write a song about it. Make it a be a thing. But it's true. I think that something, and I think from my perspective, because I came up through an industry where there were very few women. It was in newspapers back in the day, and very few women in management positions. And you did kind of think you had to be like all the other male leaders around you in order to be
Right,
effective. But it never felt good to me because it
right.
wasn't who I was as a person.
It wasn't authentic.
It wasn't authentic. And I
Yeah.
just had this reoccur, which hardly ever happens, but I had it reoccur a month or so ago, and where I was put in a position where I had to be rude and aggressive in order to communicate with the other individual.
Mm,
And
mm.
it worked because we communicated well, but it was so against the grain of who I am as a person. And I was talking to our mutual friend Kathy Sever, and I said, "This isn't. I can't do this every day. It's just not me, and now I feel less than a person because I
Yeah.
just had to be somebody I wasn't."
Right,
And
right.
my husband was like, "Yeah, but you got through to him and you made it." I said, "That doesn't. It wasn't even about that. It was
Yeah,
about it wasn't me." And I think when we learn that we can be our authentic selves and still be capable leaders,
right.
the world is going to be a better place.
And think about it, 99.9% of your other clients love you and communicate with the authentic you. So the fact that you have one
Right.
person, bye.
Yeah. Right. That's pretty
I
much what
have
happened.
99 people who like me and one who doesn't. Bye.
So there you go. You're out. You're
Done.
outnumbered. I'm going to call everybody else and have them tell me how much they love me.
Which go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you going to
No,
say?
I was just going to talk about when you said and call people and tell me how much, you love me. I think it really goes back to the other component that I think is missing from women's lives. And that is the, finding and surrounding yourself with women who genuinely care about one another and respect one
Yeah.
another. And I think I we don't see that as much with young girls, right? It's not pretty. And thanks to social media, and I don't even want to get on that because I'll be talking about that for 3 days. But I think this idea of we need to be better support systems for women, and encourage younger women to be a support system for other women. In fact, you and I both spoke to the young ladies at the Young Naperville
Yes.
Singers,
I love
and
that.
that was one of the pieces of advice. They said, what do you recommend? I said, support one another, be kind to one another, right? Don't, if someone isn't dressed the right way or has the right shoes or hairstyle, who cares?
Right.
We all need someone to believe in us, and especially nothing's more important than peers at that part of your life where everything is a crisis, right? And I
Right.
said, be kind to one another, support support one another. Don't get on the bandwagon of pettiness and making fun and judging and all of the awful things that young girls do to each other, because that sets the stage right there.
Oh, for sure. And like you were mentioning social media, I mean, that just makes it 10 times worse than it was when I was a teenager, because now you
Right.
see it all the time. You can't
Right.
go home at the end of the day and shut your bedroom door and take a break from it. Like, it's in your
Right.
face all the time. And I loved being around those young girls because it's
Yes.
like you had this whole room and you thought, the future's so bright. Like, you
Right.
guys are so
Right.
good. But it's
Yeah.
true, like, you want them to do all that, and you want them
Right.
to have confidence in themselves and
Right.
confidence in each other and surround themselves with good people. Um,
Right.
what would your, because we were talking about young girls, and I
Yeah.
usually ask people what you would tell your younger self, but somebody asked me this one the other day, and I thought this was such an interesting way. What would your younger self think about you if she met you?
That I'm kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, it was interesting because I think we have to own the things that we're proud of. I mean, and certainly humility is another big thing of mine. We need to be humble. But I've worked really, really hard in my life to be a good person, to be a good friend, to be a good, smart businesswoman. So I think that they would be pretty impressed with what I've done and think,
Yeah.
wow, I would never think, if that's where I'm going, I am so excited.
Right.
Right?
Right. Like, I
Yeah.
looked at those young girls who already knew what they wanted to do in life, and I thought, wow, when I
Yeah.
was 14,
Part of you wants to go, that's a good one.
I can't wait to talk to you in a few years. Huge.
Right.
But I always think, when I was 14, I don't think I had any, I didn't really even know what I thought my life would be
No,
like, or what I thought I would do.
I always thought I'd be a singer. Always, always, always. I was
Did
the
you
one
sing?
sitting in my bedroom with a brush,
Oh, yeah, I did.
singing to Barbara Streisand or Donna Summer or whoever it was. That,
Yes.
yeah, there was nothing that was going to get in the way of that, except he did, and his name's Bill.
So if Bill wouldn't have come into the picture, you could have been like a rock star.
I
You've been a
really
rock.
like, my passion was music theater.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I really loved that. And I came back to do Second City actually, because I was living in Texas at the time. And it was a great interruption. And you know how I feel about
You know,
interruptions. And he was a very positive interruption, because that is a life I am grateful to this day that I never pursued.
yeah, it's a whole different,
It's
different world for sure.
yeah, yeah. Talk
Cool.
about dysfunctional.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that
yeah.
is,
Right.
I know. And boy, talk about having to have a really strong sense of who you are and confidence, because it can really
Yeah,
be a
yeah,
tough one.
yeah,
That's so
yeah.
funny. I wanted to be the editor of Tiger Beat magazine when I was young.
That would have been an awesome job. You could have met like all those young heartthrobs.
I did. I would, not, and this is where people are probably going to write me and say, oh my gosh, you're nuts. But I would be in my basement and I would create an office with a fake rotary phone that, we had, and a
Oh.
real typewriter. And I would really pretend I was calling up like Sean Cassidy and Andy Gibb and interviewing them. And I would really type out articles, and I wish I could find them. Like, I can't even imagine what I was writing.
Would
Like,
you like
what
me to sing an Andy Gibb song for you so you feel like
Oh, don't even. Yes, yes, I would. When we're looking at old albums and stuff, my husband's always looking
I
for
love it.
classic rock things like, Van Halen and Boston. And I'm always like, I hope we find Andy Gibb and Sean Cassidy. He's like, oh my gosh, please, no. We do not need that in
My
our.
kids will even jokingly say, "Hey, Dad, is this Barbara Streisand album yours?"
My kids do that with the Osmonds. I have a lot of Osmond albums, and they're like, maybe
Yeah,
Dad listened to the Osmonds. Like, I'm pretty sure he didn't, but we'll tell him that he
we'll
did.
go with that. That's
That is
hilarious.
the beauty of, like, and think about, I always think it's interesting to think about what you wanted to be when you were a kid, even though you didn't become a singer. There's some
Right.
aspects of being a singer, and that
Mm,
what was driving you that you still carry with you today.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't
I
necessarily.
I think it was just like when you sing, when I played my guitar and I would sing, like people would be happy,
Mm.
right? Right? You could just see like people were happy and like, oh, that was so nice. Or it I think about the girls or the young ladies that we saw at YNS and their voices, and not that I sounded like that, but just like I was looking around at the audience and everybody was so connected to that.
Yes.
Right? And so, and maybe that was you found that connection, right? And I think that's what I loved about it.
I did the same thing about looking around and seeing, like, there's just something about everybody being so tuned into this moment together, like sharing
Agreed.
that experience in that moment is just,
Pretty powerful.
it was
Yeah.
very powerful. And that's when I wished I was a singer. I'm like, wow, I could have totally, this would have been my jam. And
Yeah, right.
we
I was trying to sing really loud.
I know. I was trying not to for fear that they would be like, oh, okay, you're not allowed to. I didn't know that we were singing until I went to meet with the girls at their practice. And then as I'm in front of the group, she mentioned something about us all singing. And I think the look on my face was like, excuse me, wait, what? I thought I misread that. I didn't hear that.
Just move your lips, lip sync.
I know. It was a good song. So I
Yeah,
knew,
it was a good one.
I felt like I could do that.
Yeah.
We love to surround ourselves with smart women. I mean, as
Mhm.
adults or young women, whatever it is. Do
Yeah.
you, and especially now, because you're kind of immersed in this world of leadership, do
Mm.
you find that there's any common traits between like all the women? I mean, they're all different, but
Mm.
are there any common traits that you ever see?
Like in women that I know now,
Yes.
I think I'm going to go back to what we were talking about earlier and saying that authenticity, right? Women are realizing more and more the importance of being authentically you, because the minute that you're not, people can see that and smell it from a mile away, right? So I think that is what I find most attractive and what attracts me to making friends or professional relationships, whatever it might be. Like, I want to do business with someone who is that authentic being who embraces who they are. So I would say that is a common thread for many of the leaders that I know, and they're great, great leaders. So
Yeah. I love that authenticity is like that top thing.
yeah.
That
And
is,
it was so interesting. I don't know if I shared this with you or not, but when I knew that I was going to accept this position, I sent a questionnaire out to my daughter and about 8 of her friends who are now between 28 and 30, right? And I was asking questions about, leadership base so I could get some insight. And one of the most common responses for what do you admire in leaders and your female leaders was authenticity.
really, oh, good.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
I feel like the younger generations get it so much. I think because they're
Mhm.
so bombarded by information and things all the time
Yeah,
that they're kind of craving
yeah,
that
I agree.
authenticity and real relationships. And I'm tired of being somebody on Instagram that isn't me, or I just really want to know the real people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially then that may be another component that why people find authenticity so refreshing is because we have all these personalities on social media
Right.
that like this. I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, Gary V, that everybody
Yeah.
follows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that guy, what you see, man, is what you get. Right. But I
Yeah.
kind of want to be like that female version of him, like, but my impression of him, right?
Yeah.
I, I still want to put that up on social media, my impression of Gary Vee.
Yeah.
But he's authentic. I
He
mean,
is.
like there is nothing about that guy that isn't real. And when people call him out and say, I don't like this, it's like, I don't care. Okay, then don't follow me.
Right. And that's okay too. And I think like
Right.
that is something that I wish young girls would understand too. Not everybody has to like you.
Right.
It doesn't mean you can be mean to them. Like that's not what I'm saying. But not
Right.
everybody, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And that's okay.
Right.
That
Right.
doesn't mean you're not a good person. It doesn't
Right.
mean they're not good.
Right.
It's just, it's fine. And I wish somebody would have told me that when I was Yeah,
Yeah.
not everybody had
Yeah.
to like me because I kind of thought they did.
Yeah. Well, and I still think I see, women my age that, oh my gosh, if someone says something, how, personally they take it. And it's like, dude, it's not that big a deal,
Right,
right? It's okay. It
right.
truly is okay.
You're gonna be fine. I
Yeah.
promise. I promise you will get through to the other side of that. I read something, there was a quote or something, it was really good about, you've made it through. Think of all the bad days that you've made it through. Like you've made it through 100% of them. So
Right.
even when you're in
Right.
a situation that you think, I don't think I'm gonna get through this, well, yeah, you will.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you'll get
Right.
resolution. Even if
Yeah.
it's not great, you're gonna get resolution.
Right. And it might not be immediate. It might be 3 years before you're able to look back and go, oh, okay.
Right. I
Right.
know. Ooh, and that's hard in this day and age
Mhm.
when we're used to everything being immediate.
I'm going to Google that and see what the resolution is.
Right. Like you're just so used to
Yeah.
things happening and I know right away, and that idea of waiting and
Right. Yeah.
might not know right away.
Right.
It's a good
Right.
lesson
Yeah.
for,
Without question.
for all of us, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
all right, so I'm going right to the end because I always tell people this. We make questions and then I don't go through all of them.
Yeah.
But the last question is, this is really hard. If you could choose one woman, past or present, to sit down and have dinner with.
Gosh, that is a tough one. That's a really, really tough one. Um, because it might be someone unsuspecting. Um, like it wouldn't be the obvious, like Oprah, right? And I think um, she's not alive anymore. Oh, you said
Yeah, it
I'd
could.
say I'd say Maya Angelou.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
There's somebody that I think screams authenticity.
right, right.
Oh
She
my
was way
God,
ahead of her time. Yeah, I would say.
way ahead of her time.
Yeah, yeah, and just like so, like talk about someone who just embraced life and embraced kindness,
Hmm.
right? And every time I would hear her speak or would read her words, it was just this sense of,
Yeah,
right?
that's such a beautiful way to say that, because
Yeah,
that is, I've never really been able to put it into words how she makes me feel. That is what it is.
yeah, yeah. It's just this sense of calm and safety,
Yes.
safety, right? Which is a big one, I think, for women, is just this safety in her words that is just compelling. Yeah.
I mean,
So,
you're absolutely right. She actually, I heard her speak at my university when I was in school.
uh,
My professor at the time, one of I was an English major, and she actually knew her. Like they were,
oh
and
wow.
she had these great stories about just like living life with her. And it was, but all of her stories were so true to who I saw on stage. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
as if she was telling about this woman that I couldn't even connect the dots. I just
yeah.
remember thinking, wow, that's exactly who I thought she would be.
Yeah,
And
isn't that awesome?
that's awesome
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
don't get that all the time.
yeah. No,
When and that's what you always want people to say, I would want people to say about me. Like she is exactly who you think that she is. There isn't
right,
any
right.
weird thing happening. And I just, yeah, I love my Angela. I have a quote of hers in my office. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love her.
She's amazing, amazing.
Oh gosh, to have her wisdom and
Right? But
calm.
I think that is really the thing that I think as women that I hope we start embracing again. The media or whomever, women have created this anti-aging perspective that
Uh,
everything about getting older is bad. You look old, you act old, you are old, you're less significant. When you look at, the Native American culture, the older you are, the more important you become,
right.
right? And so I think that we need to embrace this idea of the mass amount of life experiences and wisdom that we possess and the value that that has, right? And instead of, this constant search for youth. Look, I've been there. I don't want to be there again. I'm not quite ready to go gray yet, but I think that we've perpetuated this idea that getting older is bad and it's this negativity. So we're spending gazillions of dollars trying to be 25 again. And you know what? A, I don't want to be 25, and B, the more I try and look young, the more old I'm going to look. There's a great song, and I'm blank. Oh, Brandy Carlisle. All of these lines across my face.
Yes, it's my favorite song of
right?
all time.
Right? And so to hide the stories and the experience, and look, I color my hair, full disclosure, but there's such a message there to not want to erase that, right? Because this is where I've been, right? And who I am when we talk about authenticity. So,
and we should, and that is, I think, another part going back to, your woman at dinner. I mean, I think one of the things that she represents is wearing all of that and knowing that this is who I am. This is what I've been through, and that's made me here. Like I couldn't be this if I hadn't had that.
Right,
And
right.
not all of us have had, I'm not proud of every single moment of my past. Thank goodness for no social media during my
Right.
college years, but it's all a part of who I am. And I am honest with my kids about life and what my life was like, and it's good.
Yeah. Right. Well, it goes back to we all have our story, and which is why our hearts and minds and need to be open to understand that everybody got their stuff, right?
It's the truth. Every single person. Forget about the social media pictures of perfect lives. Nobody has them.
Right. Right.
Yet to meet anyone with the perfect life.
Right. Right.
I'm sure they're.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. So I just think that my generation of women are really need to reinforce like I say to my daughter all the time, embrace you right now, your body, your everything about you, right? Because 10 years from now it will be different, but appreciate that was then and appreciate every phase of your life and be in it, instead of being older wishing you were younger, being younger wishing you were older, right?
Absolutely. I think about that with my children too. Like there are times when I long for their younger days, like when I see other people with young kids, I think, oh my gosh, those were such good times. But I love the adults they're becoming. I love these human beings that they are in this world. And man, if I spent all of my time just sad that they weren't little, then I would miss all the cool things about them now. Like I really want to, but I love them when they're little. I love seeing pictures of their little faces and remembering funny things. But it's like, oh my gosh, you got to really just embrace like you said, embrace who you are right at this moment.
Right. Because every phase has its nuggets, right?
Yes. Oh,
and if we're so focused on that, we miss those opportunities to really celebrate those little nuggets. Because there's good, there's not so good, and that is that's life, right? It's how we come through it, and goes back to that leadership thing. It's all about the attitude, right? And but life's pretty great.
It is. I mean, at the end of the day, it really is. With all of it, all the bruises that we get from it, it's still really good at the end of the day, because we get all these opportunities to do it again the next day.
Right.
Every morning when you wake up, it's like a new moment.
Yeah. Like, this is awesome.
I'm going to do this again. Now there are days when I'm like, oh, please don't make me do that again. It's too much.
Right. And you brought up such a great point earlier about, we do so many things well, and yet the focus is always on what we didn't do well. And we really need to remind women that one thing or those two things, let them go because you outshine it 100
Yeah.
times,
Yes.
right? But they dwell and dwell and dwell, and then it just negates everything that's fantastic,
Right.
right?
Right. And that's so sometimes that's really hard to do. Like when you're
Yeah,
in the middle of it, it's hard, but it's so true to my we always like my mom is one of those kind of people who really just believes, okay, you have just a little bit of time to be sad about it and then you got to move on. Like we can't sit here. You can't sit in your
yeah,
sadness forever. You have
right.
to move on. And I think that with, mistakes we've made or going over that conversation in your head 1,000 times, like
Yeah,
just let that go and move on because like you said you're outshining that moment 100 times.
right, right. Yeah, it's so
Gosh,
true. So
I
true.
love smart wonderful women. Like I just want to
Yeah,
hang out with them all day long. That's what I
right.
love it. Yes,
Yeah.
great moments. So thank you for taking time today
My
with the
pleasure.
sun
Thank you
coming in. You
for.
know, we picked a sunny day. Yay, sun coming in.
I know,
There,
and your little angelic halo behind you.
I know, I love I love it with my well, if I open my window, it's so bright you can't see
Ah,
anything. I don't have a
oh,
very good, like podcasting room, I guess. It's just an office. It's not,
it's it's lovely.
I'm
It's
being
lovely.
authentic. This is it. This is
This is
is
it.
what you get.
And it works just fine. It works just fine,
Oh,
right?
thank you, Nikki, for
Yeah,
doing this today and
my
being part of
pleasure.
this. It was awesome.
It was awful fun. We didn't have a darn thing to talk about.
No, gosh, I was so silent. I was worried we were not going to say a word.
Those pregnant pauses. Ugh.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Have a great day.